Hello, hello, and welcome to our Happy at Home series for April the 19th. Thank you so much for joining me. And hi, I'm saying hi already to Donna and to Amy. I see your comments already. So good afternoon or good morning, good evening, depending on where you're at. And I'm so glad that you can join us for this live session. If you're catching the replay, I'm so glad that you're making some time to hopefully sit down and craft or just bring on some inspiration. Today might be a day where you want to have a notebook handy, because I guarantee there are going to be ideas that you see and you're like, I need to do that. I need to do that on one of my scrapbook pages. You're going to get a story idea. You're going to get a journaling idea. You're going to have some kind of little technique idea that just makes sense to you when you sit down to do your scrapbooking. So today's the day. Get that notebook handy. Have your pen handy so that you can jot down a couple notes. Okay, we're good to go. My name is Alice Bull and I run the membership group at scraphappy.org. We are a wonderful, I say it because I work with the greatest people. So we are a wonderful scrapbooking community that welcomes so many different kinds of scrapbookers to our Scrappy family, our Scrap Happy family. And if you're looking for a community, then we might be what you're looking for. And one of the things that we love to do is inspire you in different ways to do your scrapbooking. And it's gonna be good. Diane says this sounds like it'll be a great class today. That is the plan, Diane. Oh my gosh, did I rhyme accidentally? That was awesome. Okay, yes, we are gonna have a good class. We're talking about journaling today. And I will be the first person to confess that journaling can be hard. Some people, they are like magical unicorns and they just get it. Journaling is easy for some people. It just rolls out of their mind onto their paper and it's just easy. But if you're like me, it is not. It is not. Or you read back your journaling and you're like, well, that's really dry and boring. Well, today our goal is to fix the struggle to find the story, the struggle to tell the story, the struggle to tell the story in a way that really connects with the person that reads your story. Now, I'm going to start by saying that journaling will come. The more that you do it, the better it can be. And that doesn't mean that you get to practice doing the same thing in the same way all the time. One of the things you need to do to get better at something is to kind of step beyond your comfort zone. So if I tell you to try something, or I suggest, I'm not going to tell you to try anything. I'll suggest that you try something. And if what I suggest is a little uncomfortable, then I'm going to say, that's okay. It's okay to be bad at stuff. And I think that this month has been the best exploration of that. So if you want to see somebody that that's bad at stuff sometimes, go back and check. I have shared layouts that have terrible design. I've shared some that don't really have great journaling. I love to show you that real side of scrapbooking. Because if you don't see people that, who share their layouts and everything looks so perfect, when you see only that perfect, then you just think, oh, well, I'm not that person. I can't do what she does. I can't do that. And I disagree. I think all of us can connect better with our writing. So Sue is here. She says, I love journaling. Yay. I'm so glad that that people, there are people that find it easy and that, the words kind of maybe pour out of you onto your pages. I know Sue has some pages that have a lot of journaling. My friend Natalie, she's always trying to find more space on a page to get her stories on there. And I think that's just amazing. But if you're like me and you struggle, today's your day. So I wanted to start by saying, we're going to talk about some different ideas, but I think that one of the first things I want you to understand is that stories don't have to be long to be good. And stories may not come out right the first time. Okay? So, the first time that you picked up some watercolor and tried it, were you delighted with your results? Did you think, oh my gosh, I'm so good at this? Or did you think, wow, I'm not good at this yet? Because I think that's really important when we're doing our writing, to understand that we might not feel like we're good at this yet. But the key word is yet. We can get better. Yeah. So Misty says, my problem is I'm too wordy and I often can't really fit what I want to say. Okay, well, we can talk about that too. Okay, so, okay. And I actually have a series on my, a series of emails, and some of you may have signed up for this in the past, and I'm bringing it back and adding some new additions to the email series. It's called Write on Journaling, like WRITE, but like write on, come on. Like, so puns, Alice, we're going to be silly a little. And I think, it's just a good place for a little bit of inspiration to look at some ideas. I also talk about this on the Scrap Happier podcast quite a bit. I dive into some different ideas. And actually, we had just started a series on the podcast, which you can find on most podcast players, like the Apple, iTunes. You can go to, I think it's on Spotify too. I don't even know. Like, Spotify's confusing to me, but it's in most podcast players. You can listen to the Scrap Happier podcast. I make very short episodes. My goal is like 10, 12 minutes generally. And I just want you to have a good idea, a quick win, and something that you can try for yourself. So that's the goal with that podcast. And so, yeah, let's talk about one of the things I said. Writing doesn't have to be long to be good, right? So let me grab an example that I think fits really well with that. Sorry, I got so many things here pulled out. It's gonna be exciting because I got so many things pulled out for us today. Okay, so let's have a look. This layout, so fun, inspired by No, this one was inspired by Sarah. I was going to say, it's actually inspired by both Misty and Sarah, because they're some of my fun inspiration. But this one was inspired by Sarah Scraps, and she had me stamp some stuff and then drip the watercolor through. Lori says the podcast is my favorite. That is so sweet. Thank you so much for saying that. I love it, and like sometimes I struggle because I did have some breaks here a while ago because I had so much going on, but I really love making it. I love sharing it, so thank you. So this layout, I love the idea behind this page. Like, we stamped the stuff and we used the ink from the stamps, but some of it wasn't inky enough to really drip the way I wanted it to. So I did add a little extra color to it and got it to drip. And oh my gosh, is it not beautiful? Like, so beautiful. So creative technique, there we go. We start with one. But the page is called Oh Honestly, Emily, because it's a direct quote from my one niece, actually cousin. So my cousin's daughter and my cousin, these two girls, they came over to visit us from Wales, and they each spent a month, but there was a week where they were both here. So I had 3 weeks with one, 1 week where they're all together, and 3 weeks with the other. And they're friends at school, so it was really fun. But Daisy had the best response, and we have joked and laughed about this ever since. Daisy said the perfect response when Emily asked, "Oxygen? What's that for?" She's from Wales. Her accent's adorable. The boys had been chatting, and when Emily heard the word oxygen, she asked her question, and Daisy's quick response was exactly what we were all thinking. It's something that we've had a good laugh about. Now, is this the greatest journaling in the whole world? No, it's not the greatest, but I look at it I laugh. I think it's funny. And the title makes it great, and it ties right into the story. And so I look at this page, and even though it's got a small amount of journaling, it doesn't have to be super wordy to tell what happened, why it was a funny response. And like, Emily's a straight A kid. Like, she did great in school. She knew exactly what oxygen was for. She just had this moment. And I think these are the kind of funny stories. These are the kind of little moments that we want to include in our books. And so capturing that quote that somebody says, capturing that funny moment, I think is a really great thing. And so it doesn't have to be big to be good. Hello, April. Amy says, oh, I think I remember you stamping that layout. Yeah, I know. It was so fun, right? Actually, next week, spoiler alert, next week on Tuesday, we are going to combine the Scrap Happy Scrap School, which is normally just for Scrap Happy members, but we are going to combine it with Happy at Home. And we are going to be live here on YouTube. It's also going to be for our Scrap Happy members. And you guys are going to get to experience our scrap school for the month of April with Sarah. And Sarah and I are actually working together. So we are going to do this one live, the two of us. She's going to come on here with me. And we are going to talk about alpha letters and how you can customize your alpha letters. So super fun. So this super fun page. And so journaling doesn't have to be long to be good, right? Succinct, right? That's the word. Like, make it tight and succinct. What about when your writing is so sloppy, says Gina. Oh, girl. I know exactly what that's like. I did not have the greatest handwriting. I have worked to get it legible. It's okay, right? Like, this is okay. This is okay. It's readable, so it's pretty good. But I did not have the greatest handwriting. Handwriting is a skill that you can improve and practice if you wish. But it doesn't have to be handwritten, right? We have options. We can use like an old school typewriter, like what I have just over here off of the camera. I've got like the Murder, She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher typewriter. I got one of those. You can get the We Are Memory Keepers one that you can roll your 12 by 12 paper right into. You can print, and we will see examples of that as well. Regular time, Donna, the regular time, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So the happy at home time, which is also the time that we normally do our scrap schools. So that will be on Tuesday. Okay, so let's go to an example where I did type, which I don't do that often. I'll be real. I don't type that often. So let's put these into a pile right here. I'll just set these ones right here for now. And here we go. I've got this one here. It's called Queen Pin. And it helps dive into my personality, right? So it's talking about us going bowling. Super fun. It talks about me as a competitive person, my competitive side. But it also takes us back. And so pages that help me take a story between right now and tell a current story about us bowling. Okay, this isn't current at all anymore. This is like this is a few years old, you guys. Maybe even 10 years. Oh my gosh, Brian looks so young. Oh my gosh. So not quite 10. Yeah, he can't be 11. It's got to be less than that. That's good. Anyways, take a story from right now. Take a story from yesteryear, however many years ago that is, and bring those together on a page. I love to call that a now and then layout. Call it as you will, but I call them now and then layouts. And I think that it is such a good way to bring some of your older stories that you might not have photos for. You can bring them into your scrapbook pages. So write that down if you're taking notes. Now and then pages. You should also have written down that journaling does not have to be long to be good. Okay. So Queen Pin. I'm not the most coordinated person. In high school, I loved playing volleyball, but I was lucky to make the team. A perk of living in a small town, as I wasn't very good. Bowling is something that I truly love, especially 10-pin bowling. I miss that we don't have bowling in Whitecourt anymore. We recently took the boys 10-pin bowling on Jonas's birthday. They'd never tried 10-pin before. It was fun. Turns out beginner's luck only gets you so far, as I was the queen pin. So I love that I was able to sneak in the fact that I was the best bowler of the day, that we took my boys 10-pin bowling, that I talked about my old days of volleyball, which I don't think there's a single picture of me playing volleyball, and that you might think volleyball, bowling, completely unrelated. It's like sporty stuff. It's competitive stuff. And I'm able to talk about how I, didn't have coordination for volleyball, but, turns out bowling, you just roll it down the aisle. It's great. Galley? Gutter? No, stay out of the gutter. Like, this is how good I am at bowling, you guys. I'm not like competitive league bowling. I'm like, bowl with your family and I can win bowling. But here I go. Like, I typed this one out on a typewriter and cut it into little strips, which is a great way to get your journaling onto your page if you don't like your handwriting. So it doesn't have to be handwriting to be good, right? If you struggle with spelling, well, the computers, like, write it out, type it out on your computer. Not only will it help you fix your spelling, but you can have it help you fix your grammar if you're concerned about grammar, right? I think these are amazing tools that we have to help us create our journaling, to create our writing. And, maybe you're doing your handwriting, you get to a word and you're like, how do you spell that? So you just grab your phone and you get your phone to help you. If you can't even get the word started, you can talk to your phone and get it to write the word out for you. It's amazing, the technology that we have. So embrace that technology, bring it on, and use it to help get past the hurdles that don't have to be hurdles. Like, we are not in English class. And if people are looking at your layouts and saying, you spelled that wrong, you got your grammar wrong, you used the wrong there, you used the wrong, like, whatever, you used the wrong to, then they're not getting the point of what you're doing. And, like, does that matter? Gina says, my handwriting is so bad I failed it in school. So maybe for you, it's not handwriting. Maybe you print, right? Just go back to, like, simple printing so that it's, it might be a little bit longer to do it, but having that part of you that is on there, I think, is really precious. Have you ever picked up a picture or a piece or a document or something that your grandmother wrote on? And, like, maybe she wrote the date on the back of a photo, or wrote somebody's name or a location on a photo. When you see that handwriting from your grandmother, you're not looking at that going, oh my gosh, like, she spelled that wrong, or, oh my goodness, didn't she do this? No, you're going to be looking at that saying, oh my gosh, my grandmother had beautiful writing. Disregard the scrapbook police. That's right. That's right. There does not have to be scrapbook police. If they're looking to pick your writing apart, they're looking at the wrong thing. It's about the heart that you put into your pages. Yeah, Fran says, my answer to spelling, I say, excuse my French. That's really funny, because I'm pretty sure she is French. So, or the wrong words, right? Like, we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to make mistakes. And on some of my layouts, if I make a mistake, literally, I will cross a line through it and write the word again. And that used to drive me crazy. Like, what if I make a mistake? I can't just cross it out and leave that mistake there. But why? Like, why could I not leave a mistake on a page? Is my life perfect? Am I perfect? No. So why do I have this unreasonable expectation that my writing has to be so perfect? another page that kind of talks about me, like, not being the sportiest, but still liking the idea of sports. Oh, wrong way. Putting this one the wrong way. Okay. Yeah, so this one is a ski story. And here in my handwriting, it says how embarrassing. It's a little hard to read, but, nowadays I probably wouldn't put handwriting on a busy background like that, but I did, whatever. And so just a little piece of this writing says, yes, I can ski. I don't like to go too fast. My boys were both better and faster than me by their third day of skiing, but I enjoy it. My first time skiing was a rather interesting event, and I have an embarrassing story. So I talk about how I went on a trip in high school, and the instructor taught us some basics, and then I rode up the chairlift with the instructor. We're admiring the view, and then she starts to explain how to get off the chairlift. Point your skis up, stand up, and slide down the little hill. At this point, I was massively relieved. My only experience with a ski lift was from watching some dumb ski movie where the people jumped off the lift into some powdery snow below. I actually thought we had to jump. How crazy is that? I still got on the lift. What was I thinking? The things we do in our youth. Okay, so that's part of my journaling here. And so I put this story on here because I'm able to talk about, here I am going skiing as an adult. I talk about this dumb story from my youth and that first time. And I remember being like a little terrified, like, but I'm with the teacher. She's going to teach me how to jump off this thing properly. Like, how? Seriously. Like, I can't even explain it. It's like one of those, like, it feels like a dumb blonde joke, right? Like, like, could that even be? But I put it here, and I want to draw attention to the way that I wrote the story. So I've got the story, I've kind of split it into some different thoughts, some different paragraphs, and I want you to hear the words that I'm using. At this point, I was massively relieved. My only experience was watching some dumb ski movie. I actually thought that we had to jump off the lift. How crazy is that? Those kind of words are the words I use when I talk. So I think here's another note. Write the way you talk. Write the way you talk when you're telling a story to someone. You're not going to say, yeah, I used to think that you had to jump off a ski lift, and then I found out you didn't have to. Right? Like, that would be the most boring story. But this is a hilarious story. So by putting some more energy and emphasis into the way that you're telling your story, using the words that you actually use, like, you don't want to make it sound like somebody else is telling the story when it's yours. But I think that by using the things that you would use, saying some dumb ski movie, I would say that, right? That's the words that I would say. So it's really important to write in the way that you talk so that it sounds like your voice. The biggest disconnect is when we try to be too analytical. We try to be too much like a reporter, right? That's like often the advice we get told when we're told to write a story. Who, what, when, where, and why. Use your 5 W's. Well, I think that's wrong. I think we have to talk like a human. We have to talk like ourselves, because otherwise it doesn't connect. The who, what, when, where, why is pretty boring in this story. I went skiing, in Jasper, when I was in grade 10. Like, those are the boring parts of the story. I even skipped those parts when I read it to you, right? Because I wanted to get to the juicy part. If I cut out everything except for the juicy part, the story would still be good. In fact, it might even be better. And so writing the way that you speak can be so good. So let's have a look at some of the comments here. April says, I don't do cursive on layouts. I do this hybrid of print and handwriting that I developed when I was practicing. I had a book about journaling on quilts that I used as a tutorial. Yeah, I think having that practice to make your writing better can definitely help. Learning a little bit about handwriting. You'll notice this one is typed. Why is it typed? Because I got a lot to say, and my handwriting is not that tiny. It's not that tiny. So when I have a larger story, I'm more apt to type it. Handwriting, Sophia says, the handwriting of those closest to you, especially if they're not around anymore, is very precious. I speak from personal experience. Doesn't matter what it looks like or how neat. Yeah, it's part of that person and you feel that connection. It's the personal attachment that matters, she says. And April says she has typed strip journaling with mistakes too. Oh well. Yep, it happens. And it's a matter of like, how important is that mistake to the intent of your page? Yeah, April says, I agree with Sophia. I kept envelopes for years because they had my mother's handwriting on them. Yeah, and even if you didn't want to keep the whole envelope, imagine cutting out all of these little pieces of her handwriting and just kind of like collaging that into the background of the page with your mom's picture. Like, gorgeous. Like that would be done enough for me. And like a line that says, seeing your handwriting just makes me feel so cozy, or something of that sort, right? And April has a really good tip here. So that is something that goes with this. You can let your phone record you telling the story if it helps you to tell the story the way that you speak. Yeah. We need a new set of letters for journaling. Heart and humor can be too. Yeah, right? Sue says the who, what, etc. questions help you remember to add the details and then tell the story in your own words. Yeah, if you want to have the details, that's why I have them in here, right? Like I have the stories. When I was in high school in grade 10, we went to Marmot Basin in Jasper. Like those parts are in here. But I think that because you want to know, right? You want to know that. And being able to tie this in, it's both a now and then page a little bit, a touch of that, but it's mostly a page about that remembrance. Okay, let's talk about, let me see, I'm not doing things in order, like this is my life, I never do things in order. So how can you find the story? Let's talk about that for a minute. We kind of talked about getting that story into your own voice, but sometimes you don't even know what the story is. You look at your pictures and you're like, we had fun, or you're so cute, or like it was a great day. And I have those pages, so I'll be the first to confess, I have those pages too. But sometimes we don't have a story that comes to mind right away. So let me bring this one here forward. We might have seen this. I think we've seen this already this month, but that's okay, because I'll tell you how the story came about. Here's a picture with, this is me. This is me. There's my cousin, and these are my two brothers, Douglas and Russell. And so when we are, when I'm looking at this, here we are at the water park. And best day ever, says April. The 4 W's and beyond. Buzz Lightyear. So what do you say about going to the water park? It was a great day. We had so much fun. It was great to be there again. But there's other stories. Like, what does going to the water park mean to me? Like, why is it special? Why are we grown-ups running up and down the stairs? Well, we don't run down the stairs. We run up the stairs and slide down. Why? Because we grew up doing that. That was fun for us. And so, you can see my handwriting is a little loose and relaxed, and it changes over time. So, you want to look back and see those changes. I've got my tight, closer handwriting, and then I got my looser, more relaxed handwriting. But This says, the only time you'll see me grinning ear to ear while racing upstairs is at the West Edmonton Mall water park. Hanging out all day with my brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole family, takes me back to my childhood. We'd spend the whole day sliding down the fastest slides and screaming at the sound of the horn that told us that the waves were starting in the pool. Now we take our kids, and our parents too, and yes, I'm still grinning as I race much slower up those stairs. And so I was able to make a page about the real meaning behind the water park. It's about that day of action and fun with all of the family, and that's what makes it fun for me. So for me, I found the story within this photo, but this photo here wasn't that story, right? So it's a matter of finding that. So one of the tips that I would say, here's another one for your notebook, is tell a friend. Tell a friend. And whether it's a friend that you get to see in person and you get to show them your picture, or you are talking with somebody online and being like, oh, look at this picture that I have. Tell your friend about your photo, because what you tell your friend is going to be the story behind the photo. It barely ever is this photo. Oh, this is us posing all together in front of the water park. This is the wave pool behind us. That's not going to be the story. You're going to tell them the story about, oh my gosh, we did this. We had the best day. When we were kids, we used to go there all the time, and then we would be running up and down those stairs. And I think that when you're telling your friend, that's when you can find your good stories. So many times, we see it all the time. So we do these load challenges within our Scrap Happy family. I'm just going to pop this up here for a second because we have load coming up very soon, later today. And this month we have inspiration from architecture, great architecture. So this is happening. You have to be signed up before May 31st if you want to come and join us. Scrap Happy members get it included. So you can either sign up for load or sign up for membership, your choice. Just go to scraphappy.org/load. /load, LOAD, and we're going to scrapbook a layout a day. And so during load, inevitably, one of our designers will make their page and put a little tiny story on it. And then they're going to tell me all about this awesome picture. They're telling me like they would tell their best friend. And they'll write it in their journaling, or they'll write it in their description, but it's not on their page. And so many times I turn to people and say, that's your story. You need to put this with your page. And I always say, just print that out, copy, paste it, print it out, and put that with your page. Because that story that you just told me needs to be with this page. And why does it happen? We get that fear when we sit down to look at this picture. We went to the water park and so and so and so, this is the list of people that went and we had a lot of fun. I get it. I've done that. But this is the big picture story. Exactly. The big picture story. Totally. And I think that's just such an important of what we do. April says the best day ever. Oh yeah, right? We had the best day ever. I'm so glad all the kits no longer have the best day ever as part of them. How many best days are you willing to admit? I know. And so I think that what's more fun actually is to take those stories that aren't so good and be like, not the best day ever. We thought we would have the best day ever, but it wasn't. So I think that finding those other stories, and when we tell our friends, that is one of the best tips you can ever have. So tell a friend. Another thing that I think is really important when we go to do our page is to write your story down first, not on the layout. Here's an example. So I stamped this background here. I made this little stamped area. We saw this during a Happy at Home, actually 2 years ago, maybe a while ago. So this was during a Happy at Home. I stamped this and we did masking. So it's masking with stamps, I think was the name of that that session. And so I created this whole little scene. I have a picture of me sitting with a book reading. It's posed, guys. It's seriously posed, just so you know. I don't look that cute when I'm sitting there reading. But I wanted to talk about the books and stuff that I love. So do you think that I wrote this all out that perfectly onto this page? No way, man. No way. I wrote this down on a scratch piece of paper before I put it here. Now, the 3-room studio, that's right, this is a 3-room studio stamps. I wrote it down so that I could make sure I could get all of the details, so that I could read it through and be like, did I really get all that I wanted to say on here? Editing, right? This is part of editing. We need to practice it so that we know that we did it right. And I think of it like a rough draft, right? How many times when we were in school did the teacher make us write a rough draft and then polish that up so that we would have a finished product? Like, I know my teacher kept trying to make me do that, and half the time I would write my finished product and then I would like sketch out a little rough draft after. Like, it was so bad. Did not love English class, you guys. I did not love it. So the fact that I am so drawn into telling better stories now, like, I'm sure my high school English teacher would like be shocked. Be shocked. So what did I start with? So you'll notice here my title says one more chapter. Now I'm going to give you like this bonus tip for this. So it says, I've always been a reader, from Little Golden Books to Nancy Drew and Sweet Valley High, a short-lived interest in Stephen King books, then on to murder mysteries with Perry O'Shaughnessy and medical mysteries of Robin Cook. Eventually, I moved on to Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series after Karen insisted I read it. And of course, I eventually devoured J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series multiple times. I was always the kid with multiple books in my desk and another on the go at home. I loved borrowing books from the library, and books I owned were read multiple times. So you hear the word multiple, you hear words get used over again. Totally fun trick for your journaling. These days, I don't read enough. I have a huge pile of books, many business books, but a few novels too. I love to cozy up with a blanket and a cup of tea, or hop in the tub and read for hours until I'm a wrinkly prune in cold water. I never plan to stay long, but there's always one more chapter. So I love this journaling because I was able to bring in so many different types of books that I've loved from over the years. Talking about, you know, the ones I read when I was just little to the ones I read when I was a little older. So I've kind of walked through the different years of my life and the types of books that I was reading. I talk about the ones that I'm trying to read now. I talk about all of it. I talk about how I like to read in the bathtub. And anybody that's a reader in the bathtub knows that that water gets too cold and then you're sitting there like a cold, wrinkly prune, right? And using those words, that goes back to writing the way that you talk. I never plan to stay long, but there's always one more chapter. Now, I think that if we finish on a strong line with our journaling, that's always a good thing. And if I have an idea for a title, many times, this is the bonus little tip, many times I try to bring that title into my journaling. Whether I start with it or I end with it, I think that, sometimes both actually, I think that bringing that title into the journaling just kind of ties it up. It's like tying a neat little bow onto your journaling to show that you really thought it out and planned it out. April says it helps when you plan the spacing. This one, I definitely needed to plan some spacing on here. Is it perfect? No, there's a little bit more space at the top of this photo than I would have liked. I probably could have just slid that photo up a little bit more, but you know, I got the lines not exactly where I would like them to be, but in the end, it looks pretty good. Yeah, and I always draw lines on my paper with my ruler or with a template that I have. I have a stencil. This one's 1,000,000 years old, so I don't know if they make these anymore. This was their storyline guide from Creative Memories from 10 million years ago. Wow, that changed the color, didn't it? But yeah, it's this blue stencil and it has these straight lines. I use those all the time. It's just a great way to add your lines really quickly to a page. So, you know, having things like that. Misty says cold wrinkly prune right here, right? Like, if you know, you know. April says, when you have to get out of the tub because there's no more hot water in the hot water heater. That's never happened to me. Never. Right? So I think that, like, the point of writing the way you talk, but planning it out first, it allows you to edit it. It was when I was editing that I thought of other books that I read. Oh yeah, I used to read those Stephen King books. I was really obsessed by those for a while. And then I'm like, gosh, I hate reading these. So then I stopped, right? And then I found this other author, and then I found this other author. And, you know, and then my friend Karen insisted I read this, The Twilight. She's like, Alice, you're gonna love these. I'm like, I'd only heard about them from other people, right? So I think it's just really fun the way that I was able to get all the details in because I edited it and I planned it out. April says she had a journal genie. There you go. See, like, there's so many little tools that we can get that help us with this. This one. Okay. So one of the things that you can do if you're struggling with journaling is sometimes you can use social media posts. This is actually a good way to tie back to telling a friend a story. Sometimes you're not just showing your picture to one friend. Sometimes you're posting it on social media and you're going to tell the people the details behind that story. That social media post can then be used to go onto your page. I thought I had one of them pulled out like that, but I don't know that I do. So social media posts, super great way. And then if you're scrapbooking like stories from your different family members, sometimes that's a good way to get their stories and get them in their words, right? You want somebody else's perspective sometimes, and that can be a really good way to do that. Letter writing, where's that one? Oh, this fits kind of with letter writing. Here, we'll do this one and then we'll do this one. So a future in tech. So this isn't necessarily a letter to my son, but it kind of has that same vibe as a letter. A future in tech. Perhaps he was always destined to have a job in technology, but one moment does stand out as a game changer. For Joe's 9th birthday, we gave him a Lego NXT robotics kit. The lessons he learned in programming were only the beginning of it all. And now that's what he does for a job. So it's not the greatest journaling, but I've tied together these pieces of his story by taking us back to his birthday and then to his current day situation. And I think that that's really fun. And, you know, just like looking at that game-changing moment, right? What was the big significant moment? Here, this one is like a letter to a child, but it's a letter to myself as a child. And so it says, "Dear child," right on it. So, and the journaling says, "Let me just say it. Sometimes kids aren't smart. How else can I explain the fact that I spent my whole childhood hating pumpkin pie and whipped cream? What was I thinking? I wrongly believed the only use for a pumpkin was a jack-o'-lantern. Well, those are totally awesome. So I guess I was smarter than I thought." Oh, am I freezing up? I'm so sorry. I wonder if my Speedify didn't, I don't know, it says it's open. Oh, it shouldn't be. Anyway, so this is a story about myself as a child while I'm sharing like pumpkin pie and stuff. And I think that it's just a really fun way to write about one of my likes and dislikes as I was a kid, right? And making fun of it. And yet other things like I still don't like, like onions. No thanks. I'll still say no to those. Yeah, but when you write your story down, like to get my story to fit into this heart shape, you're going to guess that I had to write that down somewhere first. So write your story first, use social media, tell your friends. Another thing that you can do is use listing for stories. I don't think I pulled out a listing example, actually. This would be the closest to a listing example. So this is the me at 26 page. I think we looked at that on another day and I showed you some of the stuff. And so I was talking about myself at age 26. And so I'll show you how a list can be a little more informal. But this has pictures of me and different things that had happened in my life before I was 26, right? Going to the ballet, going to Hawaii, going to the Sydney Opera House, going to a scrapbook store, getting married. And you guys have to see this picture. Like, isn't that hilarious? Talk about a twist. We did the one where he held me. He did not make it look gracious, you guys. Like, let's just say. But then, of course, I'm holding him. Oh, so funny. I got my kids, I got me bungee jumping, got me skydiving, and just laughing, right? So, super fun. But I included my old signature on here because at the time that was my signature, but my signature has changed since then. And so it's kind of fun to see, you know, the signature that I had when I was 26 years old. That was my signature. And then I've got this picture, but here's my list that is like not really a list, but it's a list. So I think lots of times we think of a list, it's like a top 10 list or something. You're going to number things. But this, in a way, is a great way to bring all of these random ideas together. And it doesn't have to be a list, right? They don't have to necessarily be so related. Sue says that she does social media screenshots for her adult kids. I also sometimes take screenshots of text conversations to use for journaling. So good, right? You kind of got to get what we can get sometimes. Missy says, when her bathroom got remodeled, my husband discovered baths. Oh no, that April said that. Yeah, super funny. Yeah, so different little things like, I love to spend money, especially on scrapbook supplies and home furnishings. Shocking. And very truthful, especially at the time. Oh my gosh. I love to wear sleeveless shirts, even in winter. I don't like to wear sweaters. You know, random things. I eat soup for breakfast almost every day. Usually Campbell's, mushroom, vegetable, tomato, cream of chicken are my favorite flavors. Just really thing. I am not afraid of heights, but I am afraid of ladders. I really don't like to climb or be on them at all. So really funny little pieces that I was able to put in here. So listing can be a really great way to put like these, especially unconnected pieces or pieces that don't necessarily feel like they have a flow from one to the next together on a page. Okay. Other people's perspectives. Let's talk about that because we were talking about social media. So I have this page, and this ties back to other stuff too. Oh my gosh, we're coming like full circle here. This page I did about my dad. So here's my dad. And technically the story is about him on a bicycle, but I only have like 6 or 7 pictures of him as a child. And this is him on a motorbike. So that's as close as we get. And so this is a story about this traumatic thing where his best friend nearly died when they were kids. And he actually told me this story in a conversation. And I used my voice recorder on my phone to record him telling this story. And then I went and I transcribed it from that recording. Now I had to edit a little bit, right? You're going to have to edit it when you've got somebody doing, like, telling a story like that. But I actually had him twice. I had 2 different recordings of him telling that same story. So between the 2 of them, I filled in all of the pieces that, you know, he told this time but didn't tell this time. And then he included something else over here. And so I was able to put that all together by using that voice recording. If you have the opportunity to use a voice recorder to record someone sharing these stories from the past, like from your parents, grandparents, even your siblings, or, you know, just when your family is hanging out and talking, I think that's a really great way. Now, depending on what the recording laws are where you live, you might want to know about the legality of that. Here in Canada, the rules are as long as one party is aware that a recording is happening, you have to be present. You can't just record, but that's totally illegal here. So when I record, and you know, you may wish to be like, hey, can I record this and put that out there for everybody to be like knowing that you're recording, or not. Like I said, know the legalities where you live. But using this to tell like this story and be able to include something like that was like the coolest thing for this page. I'm so glad that I was able to get the story, to have that audio. And I think what I would like to do is actually take the audio and add just a photo or something with it and then put that on my YouTube and then add a little QR code on here so that you can actually hear my dad tell a story too, because I think that would even be better. So, you know, just a different thought for bringing that together as part of a scrapbook page, right? Yeah, getting other people's perspectives. You know, your kids and your family, showing them some pictures and getting their perspective and the stories that they remember and that they tell. This one here, let's talk for a second about, you know, when you don't have space. Some pages you don't have a lot of space. I made this grid page about my aquarium. And it's cute. It's like a super cute page, and I have pictures of my fish and the plants and everything that I have. And I use some cute things. It says, I'm a sucker for you. Hey, girlfriend. And you're so fantastic. You know, I'm a sucker for puns. What can I say? I love it. But I didn't have space to put my story on here. And I wanted to tell my fish story. Which, you know, calling it your fish story, I think is just even better, right? But yeah, I was able to write out my whole story on this and create a pocket behind here. So, you know, as long as you're not digital scrapbooking, using pockets is such a great way to get room, to be able to do all the pretty design and still have room for all of your story. So anything like big like that can be turned into a pocket really easy with a couple little strips of some foam tape. And this page is not really that chunky, right? So I've got the foam here and I've got these popped up on foam, but this page is not a very chunky page. So if you're concerned about them being too thick, one little layer of foam to pop it up to create a pocket is usually not that bad to do. Here's another one that I did, and I used pockets. Canada had its Freedom Convoy here recently in February, and I had some strong emotions and feelings, And I'll just show you, like, I've got pictures that I screen captured from some of the events that were happening. And then I just wrote some of my feelings on a piece of paper. And it was pretty raw and pretty emotional. And it's literally a piece of loose leaf paper. And that might not be what I would normally plan for a page, but there's no way that I can replicate the raw emotion that went into this journaling, with the mistakes, with the rush, with the lack of planning that actually went into this, and be able to tell as real of a story. So I choose to keep it in this rough condition that it is, because it tells the story of how strong my emotions were during this event. So pockets. And then this page here, it doesn't so much have as much journaling in it. So it talks about how when I started coaching the swim team in 2012, I didn't know what I was getting into or how much I'd love it or how much there was to learn and how I'd love to be a coach. So call me coach. But, I had all of these different newspaper clippings, some of them from my team, some of them from my son. And I just scanned all the different newspaper clippings, because newspaper does not hold up well, no matter, like, you can spray it with acid-free stuff. It just doesn't hold up well. So I created a giant pocket. So I could have had more journaling, but I chose to scan the newspapers and include them. So I turned the whole page into a pocket, so you can kind of see that there's foam tape along the sides, and then I've just got this giant pocket there. So there's always more room than you might think on your page. Donna says, don't delete the voices. My 6-month younger than me died suddenly at 55, and I saved her. Oh, your sister? Oh, and I saved her voicemail messages. Right? So sweet to have those voice recordings. So I know it's like, don't delete it. So yeah, letter writing, social media posts, telling your friend, writing your story, editing your story, incorporating some lists, getting other people's perspectives, using hidden journaling. Sometimes a story is too raw and emotional, or you don't necessarily want everybody to see that right away, but you still want to document it. Hidden journaling can be great. Oh, your cousin. Oh. She says that's what I try to do. Well, that's what I tend to do when I'm trying to tell a story if it makes no sense. Honestly, that's part of why we write it, and then we edit it and bring it back to our page, right? It gives us the chance to catch some of the things. And when we have emotional stories, we're going to miss stuff. So let's share this little emotional story. I talk about this one recently on the podcast, and so I have the page out so I can take a picture of it, because I forgot to put the picture of it on the replay, on the show notes. But I talk about how emotional I was when both of my kids had gone off to college and university a few years ago. And I was surprised by my emotions. And so I talk about when the boys started college and university this fall, at first I felt cavalier about it. I convinced myself that I was fine because I was so excited that they were starting such big adventures in their lives. I knew I'd be busy, and I didn't think I'd miss them too much. Luckily, Joe was home, his home, not mine, on weekends, so I'd see him, and of course, he'd call me too. Ryan was the opposite. I didn't hear from Ryan for what felt like ages. Days turned to weeks, and I still hadn't heard from Ryan. I knew he was busy with school and swimming. He had a very busy schedule, but wasn't there a tiny bit of time to check in with his mom? I didn't want him to feel bad, but I was missing him so much. So yeah, like putting that page together, I was just really feeling caught by my emotions. And I think I'm just so glad that I documented that, because, you know, here we are a few years later, things are totally different. Neither of them is actually pursuing what they were pursuing in school at the time. They're totally doing different things. And so that's one of the magical things about our scrapbooking, right? We can capture all of these stories that talk about how our plans change. And I'll just keep you a couple more minutes. So this here is a perfect example of plans changing, and it's called You Gotta Work. But my first paid job was as a lawnmower at my aunt and uncle's fourplex rental property. I got paid $50 a month. The summer after grade 11, I worked on a farm. I would pick, cut, and process rhubarb, and also would weed the garden and help with the hay harvest. I was paid $5.50 an hour. After grade 12 and a few summers after that, I worked at a lumber mill. I was the mechanic shop student. Okay, no, I thought I made a mistake there in my journaling after saying edit. I was a mechanic shop student and had various jobs, from driving the fuel truck to a big loader. I was paid $11 and later $13 per hour. Later, I helped Jonas run our business, and I still do. So I think that it's, you know, plans change. You never know what's gonna happen. And the final one that I wanted to leave you with today is more related to those foundational stories about your life. The stories that your family will tell when you get together. The stories that you think of, like the ones that you maybe laugh about. There's a lot of stories that kind of come up. And I think getting